Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today. So, what we do in our program is we take an individual film, and me and a special guest will come on and we'll critique, analyze, and generally have a great conversation about that film. Now, that film could be from any different subgenre of the horror oeuvre, or it could be from any different decade, because we've been trying to take a chance and do episodes on lots of different films from many different decades, which brings us to the film we're going to be talking about today, which is the 1960 film Les Yeux Sans Visage, which is Eyes Without a Face. And to talk to me or with me today about this film is Mr. Dave Watkins. We want to welcome him back to our program today.
Good to be here.
Yes. So this is going to be a interesting film because I don't think we've done any French horror films on our podcast as of yet.
We did the Brotherhood of the Wolf. That's kind of French, I think,
That's
wasn't it?
kind
Yeah.
of
I think it
name
was French.
French.
What? Shit was French.
You got to remember,
This is a lot more French. This is a lot older French movie too.
yeah, so we did do that. That was one of our first actual one of our first episodes.
Yeah.
You're bringing it back. So yeah, that's good to bring back up.
Yeah.
So if you haven't noticed and you haven't been aware, if you love that movie, Brotherhood of the Wolf, please check that out. We have already done that film there. But that being said, this episode should be airing during our month where we focus on foreign language films. So we hope that you will enjoy this one as well as all the other movies that we're releasing. So to get started with this, Dave, where was kind of your impressions of this when you first saw it, or when did you see it? Because I know neither one of us were alive when this movie
Yeah.
was released.
Well, this is a brand new watch for me. I bought this from Umbrella Entertainment, and I got like a really nice copy of it, really thick box of it. And it's been sitting on my shelf for a while. And then when you mentioned the film, I was like, this is a good opportunity to break it out and check it out for the first time. So it just recently, just within the last few weeks, I watched it for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
With me, I only saw this for the first time a few years ago, although it has been on my watch list for many years. This film came across my radar when I was talking in my college class about classic movies, and this one came up. Um, so it just took me forever to actually get around to getting it, and of course, I got the Criterion Collection version of it. So I watched a very good version of it. Probably not nearly as good as yours because yours is a 4K version, but I still was able to watch a really great version of the movie.
It probably looks really good in the one you have too. This is a black and white film from 1960, and it is French, and but it still holds up really good as far as the way that it looks. I didn't see any problems with the film grain or any issues with the film itself. It has been preserved very nicely. It's apparently if that being the case, it must be a very popular film. I think it's a really big film for them that they've taken very good care of it.
It's a film that has inspired many films that have come after it. So kind of like watching them film the original black and white version of Diabolique, which is another great film that inspired lots of films that came after it. This film, I believe, has done the very same thing, which is why it's so fondly remembered.
It
Um,
was yeah. What's funny about this movie is that when I was watching it, like the first like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, there's not any dialogue for a while, which is cool. It's actually since everything's in French, it's sometimes when there's not dialogue, it's actually a little more easy. It's easier to follow sometimes. But then they started talking, and I didn't have the subtitles on, and I watched it for a few minutes in, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand a single thing they just said. I had to rewind it back and put the subtitles on and watch it again.
oh my God. Yes. This movie begins it just jumps right into the story, especially when you see the Louise character who is essentially driving down this desolate road to a place where she dumps off a body. That's how the movie
Yeah.
opens.
It looks really cool too, the way that
Yes.
it's shot and even the driving. Do you think that was screened or you think that was actually like her driving down the road? Because it looked really good if it was a green screen situation.
I think a lot of these scenes back there were probably rear projection. or
Yeah.
some type of projected image on the back, because a lot of the driving scenes look like that to me. But because it's also French in the 1960s, they probably also did a lot of location shooting as well.
I mean, it may have been because I was watching it in the 4K version, but it looked really good to me. It didn't look like sometimes you watch in these older films and they're in the car and it just looks really fake. But it does have like a, I mean, even if it looks a little fake, it does have like this kind of surrealistic type of feel to that sequence.
Hmm.
And just seeing that it is a 1960 car, so all that looks really cool in the scene.
Well, you just mentioned the cinematography of the film, and I'm glad you mentioned that your version, the 4K version, didn't have any grain or did noticeable grain
Well,
because
yeah, I mean, there's always going to be grain there because you don't want them to scrub it out, but it wasn't like a wall of grain, and there wasn't
yeah.
any real like sometimes you're watching an older film, there are problems with it that in the film it was scratches or blips or whatever that they maybe they cleaned it up. Did you see problems with it when you're
I
watching
did
it?
I didn't see anything, but I know mine looked either if it and I've only seen the Criterion Collection version. I'm not seeing a version before that, so I don't know I don't know the difference between them. But the scenes in the last act, that were all outside of the villa where everything takes place, looked amazing, and they looked crystal clear. And you could see the dark shadows and the darks in there
Yeah, yeah.
perfectly well. It looked great. Um,
And there's a lot of that in this film, though. A lot of that, the kind of darkness in some areas, and since it's black and white, I mean and they do shoot it on purpose for it to look black and white. They had to have that really high contrast. That was something that we've been talking about those Hammer films. They brought into the early Hammer films from switching from black and white to color, which actually worked really good even in color. But I feel like a lot of filmmakers are doing more of that lately too, like kind of bringing back that sort of like contrasted, really dark areas to the light areas.
Oh no, I started seeing that too. Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned that. I've been seeing that a lot as well, and I've been wondering if that's because digital cinematography has made everything so crystal clear, and they're trying to get to something that's much more saturated and or more contrast in terms of the lighting. I've noticed that as well. And I know it's an interesting thing to bring up, but when you're watching a black and white film, it's what they strived on. Is what whether
Yeah,
you're watching a noir film or you're watching
yeah.
a horror film, it's this that stuff is what you saw all the time, and it made these films much more enjoyable. So
This one does lean a little bit into noir somewhat. It does a little bit of that in horror. A couple of things I want to point out. The actress that plays Louise, at the beginning of it.
yeah.
Um, I recognize her from a few things, but she is there's a movie called The Third Man with Orson Welles. You ever see that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
She's
love
like it. She's like the main actress in that. And there's a movie by Mario Bava called Lisa and the Devil, and she plays the Countess in that. And of course, like in Suspiria, Dario Argento's Suspiria from 1977, she plays one of the teachers, a very recognizable one, the kind
uh,
of bitter teacher.
oh,
Yeah. But she had a very big career. She was originally positioned to be like a really big star, especially with that Third Man. And they were thinking she'd like be something like a Greta
yeah.
Garbo or something like that. But she had a very long career, but she never really blew up like they thought she was going to. But she does a very in her later. I mean, the good thing about this actress and what she does, she playing go from the Third Man playing like a leading lady to playing these characters like she plays in this one in Suspiria and Lisa and the Devil. But she was able to transition from being that leading lady to being a character actress in a very well good way to make her career last for most of her life.
Hmm. Yeah, I was familiar with her in The Third Man, at least in The Devil, but not in Suspiria. Probably because that's a color film and much later on than the
Right.
films were. So I
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you're going to recognize her if you look up that character or look up her name, the character she plays. You'll recognize her, but you don't recognize her from this because she looks so much different. But she plays a pretty one of the teachers, one of the like the kind of enforcer teacher, the kind of she kind of like looks like she's pretty strong in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No, no. I'll have to think about that when we actually get around to doing Dario
yeah.
Argento Suspiria, which we haven't done yet on the program. So,
Yeah, but this another thing I wanted to point out too. 1960. This is the same year that Psycho came out. This reminds me a little bit of Psycho, but it obviously wasn't influenced by it because they were being shot at the exact same time.
Hmm.
But I thought that was very like when I'm like I'm getting Alfred Hitchcock vibes when I'm watching this film in general. So I'm like thinking, did Alfred Hitchcock take it from this? But he Alfred Hitchcock had been doing color films up until Psycho for his like, about 5 films before that, and suddenly in Psycho he financed it himself a lot of it. So he went a little bit cheaper and went black and white. Also, it was effective to cover up some of the gore and effects that were in there at the time. Probably wouldn't have passed by the censors.
Well, and also
Yeah.
keep in mind he used the same crew that he had from his television show to keep costs down to do Psycho. So that's why Psycho is so different from some of the other films he was doing at that time period.
Right, right. But then, so as far as that, yeah, so basically, she brings a body, and she's in the car. She looks in the rear view mirror. There's a really cool shot. It shows the rear view mirror. She pans it down, and she sees, or tilts it down. I guess the rear view mirror also doesn't pan, but she tilts it down, and then she sees that there's somebody in a man's coat in a man's hat, like a trench coat. It looks like something out of like a detective story, and you think it's a man. But then she pulls over to the side of the road and drags out this body. The hat falls off, and it's a girl. And it's a
But
cool sequence, though.
yeah, and later we find out it was a woman who's been dressed up in man's clothing. So
Right.
by the inspectors. This is why you get that kind of vibe that's a noir film, because there are two predominant detectives in here, and at one point it's the mystery of them trying to figure out what's happening to these missing girls.
Yeah.
Because I do not know how to pronounce the main character's last name, the Doctor Genesois. Genesois. Yes. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like thinking the same thing. I was like, I wrote it down, and I was like, I can't pronounce it. The actor's name's Pierre Bravier, I believe is how you pronounce that.
Brazil.
Um, yeah, but he apparently he did a lot of other French films. I didn't see anything that I'd seen that he actually worked on, but he does a good job in this. He was apparently a very famous French actor when they shot this movie,
Mm.
and it was a pretty impressive get to have him and the other lady that Aladia Vali. Yeah, yeah, and it's pretty impressive to have both of those in the cast at the time.
Well,
But yeah, but this movie does an interesting. It's like it does take a long time to understand exactly what's going on, and it's kind of surrounded in mystery for a while, and it kind of plays with your emotions a little bit until you find out exactly what's going on, and then it messes with your emotions even more after that because you don't know what to think of this doctor when you first see him. They call him in. They say it might be his daughter. His daughter's missing. She
mhm.
previously had a wreck, and you have some sympathy for him. You think, wow, he's coming here to identify his daughter, and he comes in there, sees her, he says it's her, and he kind of keeps a poker face, like he's trying not to hold back like some emotion. And then another dad shows up, and then he says, oh, he's like, it's not your daughter, it's this other guy, it's my daughter. And so, of course, that ends up being a sinister thing, all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah.
no, go ahead. No, I
No,
don't.
I mean, I think, but they do a weird thing with the script where it kind of keeps you kind of not even knowing exactly what's going on for almost like 20 minutes. You're just kind of following what's going on, what they're showing you, and you kind of don't quite understand what's going on. You don't even understand that you understand the daughter's dead, but I guess you think there might be some serial killer or something who killed her. But it's a little head scratching a little bit for a while because it takes a little while to really get in understand it until you actually see the daughter. I think that's the first scene where it's like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's purposeful for this film in that era where it's kind of like you're as the audience member are being thrown into the story right in any particular moment, and you're not explaining who any of these characters are. You just have to go with the flow, which is why the very beginning, which you commented on, has almost no dialogue, and we're just watching this woman who we don't know what her name is, driving along, and then she dumps a body.
Yeah.
Next thing we know, the cops don't. The cops find the body, but to be honest with you, we're not 100% sure that's the body that she dumped. It could have been a previous body. It could have been a bunch of different things. But you're listening to this all come about with the doctor. I'm gonna just call him Doctor G. Doctor G. I'm gonna call him Doctor
Yeah,
G. Doctor
I
G,
like it.
who is could be a grieving father at first until we realize that when we first see his daughter who isn't dead like he claims, and we don't see her face. She hides the first scene we see her in, she hides her face the entire time. And we learn through the dialogue that she was in the accident and she was horribly disfigured. Horribly disfigured, and she's not been wearing the mask because she obviously does not like what she looks like, and she doesn't like the mask either. Which leads into some of her own Christians. Christians.
Is that how
Uh,
you pronounce it? Christiance. That's
Christian,
her name. Yeah. But
Christian.
I mean, if you think about wearing a mask, she's got some bare skin going on there. Wearing a mask is probably not very comfortable. Yeah.
Well, it's an unusual thing because obviously Dr. G doesn't want to see his daughter that way, so he makes her wear a mask all the time, and his daughter doesn't want to wear it either. So it's part of the play. That whole thing about that plays into both his guilt because of the accident that she was in, and the fact that he can't help her. Every one of his previous experiments, because we learned that there had been more than just the one body, the one person, with the one victim. Every one of those experiments failed, and each failure then makes him believe that he now knows what's wrong and that he can fix it the next time. Um,
Yeah, he's also got like a shelter full of dogs that he's also experimenting with the dogs as well.
yeah, that comes. You know what? I forgot that he was experimenting on a dog till I rewatched it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, that's right. He's playing with and experimenting with the dogs, and that is the only purpose they are there. They are always in the kennel. They're not out there guarding the yard. They're not doing anything. They are literally in the kennel, and they are all strays that are brought there from other people. Some a dog catcher. I'm just gonna call him a dog catcher. Brings them there, and they're strays that were captured, and he just takes them in, and no one asks any questions because he's a really respected doctor, and his clinic is like a few paces from his villa,
Yeah.
his large villa. Um,
Right.
so he's
They,
really respected.
one thing I think is very effective, or like when there's a earlier scene where there's a picture of the daughter, a painting of the daughter on the wall with her face intact, and there's birds around her. She looks very angelic, and so that's kind of his idealized version of his daughter that he pictures his daughter being, and he can't accept her being disfigured like she is.
Yeah, yeah. Which
But yeah. But seeing that picture though is very effective, like the way that it's brought in like that in the movie.
Oh yeah, because that is literally the only time where we actually see what she was supposed to look like before the accident. We don't really get another idea of that until obviously this is bound to happen in these type of movies. If the father is trying to replace and or fix his daughter's face, eventually we're going to see that happen at some point. And we do. But unfortunately, this is all an experiment to Dr. G. And obviously, one failure will just lead him into another, hopefully another successful attempt. And the one experiment that we actually see to fruition is actually yet another failure, but for a different reason. So, and the painting is this idealized kind of image of both what she used to look like, but what she can never achieve again. Even though they're trying to replace her face, it won't be the same face that she had before.
Right, right, yeah. It's so yeah, so the lady Louise or Louisa, I guess but she's kind of when you first starts off, you think she's the primary antagonist because she's hiding the body, but she's just helping him for the most part. But she is quite a sinister character. She's the character that goes out and finds women who look close to Christina or Christine is
Yeah,
the daughter. They look close to her, and she's able to almost seduce them into coming back and tricking them into coming back and giving them work at this doctor's house or through other ways. She's very persuasive,
yes,
and she doesn't seem like the type of person. By looking at her, she doesn't look like a dishonest person, but she's able to convince these women who are a lot of times younger. They are younger women who are looking for like a future. They're there with not very little money and opportunity, and then she gives them an opportunity that turns out not to be that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
Uh,
it's yeah, I really that's an interesting character that Louise character. She's able to go out and manipulate those girls into doing that.
yeah, but she's also manipulated by Dr. G. You see that
Right.
at the fake funeral.
Yeah.
After Dr. G has claimed the body that was found by the inspector and and I'm gonna call him a deputy, the other police officer, to be his own daughter, which he's lying about. They have a funeral, and at that funeral, him and Louisa have a altercation inside the tomb, and he just flat out slaps her.
Yeah. Yeah. He smacks the shit out of her.
She's like having
Yeah.
like second thoughts, a guilty conscience of what she's been doing with the doctor. Um, but she's also a very complicated character because she actually had a disfiguring, a facial disfigurative,
Disfiguration.
yeah,
Disfiguration.
disfiguration.
Yeah.
And Dr. G helped her overcome, and simply
Yeah.
all she does is hide the scar with pearls around her neck, a choker of pearls. And so she feels obligated to keep it. I think she feels obligated to keep helping Dr. G, especially since it's his daughter he's trying to help. Um,
Right.
and so,
They,
you know,
yeah. They do a lot to make him somewhat, he's not necessarily sympathetic, but you understand why he's doing it in a way because it's his daughter. And it is in a way a mad scientist film, but they do try to make it not a mad scientist film. So it doesn't come off like he's completely crazy because he is trying to help his daughter and not he's not just experimenting for the fun of it or to progress a scientific thing.
yeah, I believe that if this had never happened to his daughter, he would never be doing this. But he also doesn't have a moral compass to stop. Like
Yeah,
he literally see after the one skin grab from the so the Edna character who is brought in by Louise to the house uh because she needs a room to stay, and she's the first person we see that that Louise actually seduces. Like she follows her and then comes
yeah,
across her again and it seduces her with a room and then brings her to the house, the villa. And that same day, Dr. G wants to go ahead and do the
yeah,
transference because he can't wait. Like he can't wait. He's like an impatient. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and the scene though where she comes in there and she gets to the house and Edna gets to the house and she starts hearing the dogs barking and she starts feeling really uncomfortable. And she's like, okay, I'm having second thoughts about this. I don't really, I want to go back to town. And she meets the doctor and he's like, no, it's no hurry. We don't need to go back to town. I want you to sit down. I'm going to give you some port wine. And she's like, no, I really don't want any. I want to go back. And he pours the wine and then he's behind her and then he suddenly grabs her and puts like a rag over her mouth, which causes her to pass out. I guess this is kind of a movie thing. I don't think it works like in real life if you put
It doesn't work like that in
chloroform
real life.
over some
Oh,
because it happens so fast. I think in real life it would be like a lot longer struggle, but it could have been a censor thing too because it might have been a lot more violent. Even though what happens next, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it.
uh, so yes, the whole chloroform thing, which has been done in everything from Sporeless to the Vanishing and a whole bunch of other films, it
Yeah,
does not work that fast. It's
yeah,
just a movie thing. But the whole thing is getting to that scene that you're about to talk about in regards to after they've knocked her out, she's on the surgical table, and so is Christian's waiting to be faces transferred
yeah.
over. But what we
Well,
get
yeah. Before that happens, a couple of things happen though. You mean to point those out, or are you going to go into the surgery?
no, you go ahead.
So it's kind of shown after he knocks her out. It shows like I'm going to call her Christina because I can't pronounce the other name. But it shows her point of view of seeing everything, and you don't really know. what she's thinking. It's hard to tell sometimes what she's thinking. You have a better idea at the end of the film,
Mm.
but but she is a young girl, and almost like some of this may seem like a playtime thing. Like she doesn't realize exactly how deep what's happening is happening. But she it sees her point of view. She comes in, sees her laying on the table. She goes into the room where the dogs are, and she hugs some of the dogs. And she comes back in, and then she takes her mask off, and she walks over, and then Edna wakes up and sees, and we as the audience we see it for the most we see Christina's face for the first time, kind of out of focus, and probably the only time we see it without the mask on, and scares the shit out of her, and then from there they do the surgery after that. But I just thought that sequence was a really it's memorable because we see in like just that point of view of the daughter and what's about to happen and her almost childlike take on the situation that's quite a horrible situation.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up because you brought up the scene, which I'm glad I almost, and it's very important to the very end of the film, because in this scene you see her in the kennel with all the dogs, and none of the dogs seem to mind her at all. She's like this pure innocent person that all the dogs
Yeah.
absolutely love, which is not the same to Dr. G at the very end of the film.
Right, right.
It's one of those things where at first you may not think much of it until you get to the very end, but that scene is very important to just give audiences an idea of what type of character Christiance is really, because you don't get a whole lot in terms of dialogue. You get the visualization from her,
Yeah.
and how all this is affecting her. Now she obviously eventually comes to the conclusion that her father is just doing this because of guilt and not as much trying to help her. But that's one of the dilemmas she has to deal with, and which comes into fruition at the very end. Now, getting back to the surgery scene, that's one of the cooler sequences in the film because they treat this whole face rip-off thing uh, as a very specific surgical procedure, and you as the audience gets to see it. And Luis is helping him in there, and they're slicing the face around the eyes, around the edge of the face, snapping it back with the forceps, and then they'll with both of them because he needs extra pair of
Yeah.
hands. They lift it up after it's done, but you're watching all of this. Like they could have done this really fast and
Yeah.
not this procedure, but it's something that you get to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. I think that's the scene that most people are probably going to remember from this film. And it's sort of, and that's the scene where I'm thinking, I almost want it to cut away because they go, because it's like, it's so awful what they're doing to that girl. And you get to know the girl a little bit and you still feel sorry for her. It's just like it's a really gruesome thing to do to somebody, just steal their face from them and peel it off their face to put it on somebody else without their permission. And when they actually take the whole face off, it's like I'm like, I'm thinking, how far are they going to go with this? Is what I'm thinking. I'm like, are they really going to show anything? And I'm thinking, I hope they don't in a way, but then they do. The whole face just comes off, and I was like, okay, they showed it. I can't believe they got away with it, but
Well, it's in France. It's a French film, so
yeah.
there's who know I don't know much about their censors in the 60s, if they even had those type of censors or how the films were released there. I know nothing about that. That's
I didn't dig into it too deep, but apparently there was some censors involved with this, and when they looked at the original book, it was like there's some things that they didn't do that in the original book had because they had to get around censors. But the censors were different there because they probably wouldn't have been able to get away with that in the U.S. They were different, but they still had to tell the story in a different way than the book was because of some of the items. Like, say, for instance, like we're talking about the mad scientist thing earlier. They couldn't portray him as a mad scientist because they didn't want to offend German people who are known as mad scientists.
oh
Or, so they had to kind of downplay that in a different way, which actually makes the movie more interesting and less cliche with
yeah.
the way they have to portray the doctor character in a different type of light.
Yeah. which is yeah, we see that. And it's a very gruesome scene. I think it's one of the two most gruesome scenes in the whole film. The other one comes at the very end. But that scene there is kind of like, I don't know if the film would be nearly as effective without it, because you essentially are talking about a doctor who's removing faces from young women to kind of give to his daughter. And then, of course, everyone who this happens to ends up dying.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard.
You're
I mean,
right.
the subject matter for the film is not like a normal type of horror film from the 60s. Um, and I guess with when we were talking about Psycho and other movies of the 60s, we were going into that direction of having horror films that were much more realistic and much more in your own backyard, as opposed to being giant nuclear age monsters from the 50s, and we're
Yeah.
moving into something much different in the 60s. So, and this is
This is
early
it's
60s.
yeah. It's a pretty scary idea, when what you think about somebody just getting kidnapped off the street and having this done to them. When she wakes up and she freaks out, she doesn't, like, I'm talking about Edna. She wakes up,
Yeah.
freaks out. She doesn't have her face. She's all bandaged up, and she tries to escape, but I guess she's so out of it she can't figure out. And she accidentally falls out the window trying to run away from the doctor and all that, and accidentally, conveniently for everybody else, gets killed. Yeah, it's because they didn't know what to do with her. They were like talking about it, like, what are we going to do with her? It's like, well, let's just hope it works itself out, and it did.
Yeah, well, which also brings up the really other tragic thing about this, that they decide to bury her body with the body of the previous victim, their previous
Yeah.
victim, in the makeshift crypt of Christians. I was like, man, these are some
Yeah.
dark people. They got two of the wrong bodies in this crypt, and that's like, damn.
Well, yeah. It's dark, but it's also practical. If you
Yeah,
think about it, it is a practical thing for a doctor or somebody who thinks in a practical way. Because not only does he conveniently have the crypt that his daughter is supposed to be buried in, and he's able to kill the other girl, found her body's found, and then she's able to be in there. Now he can kill other people, and he's got a place to put them. But he doesn't even have to dig a hole anymore. It's like he can just bring them back in there. Oh, he could probably only fit a few more people in there, more than likely, before it's.
I don't know. It's they crack open the cover for it, and it just seems like be a bottomless hole, and they just dump the whole body in.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a mausoleum
Yeah.
area, but usually the coffins are like just right there, but it does seem like a little deeper than a normal mausoleum.
Well, it's a French mausoleum.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess
Like
they're bigger in
catacombs,
French.
they can
Yeah.
put like whole bodies, a whole bunch of bodies in there.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
But after this, of course, they think that they have achieved their goal, and we touched upon a little bit of this, but we see Christians for the first time without the mask on at a dinner. That they're all sitting around. Dr. G and Louisa are enjoying dinner, and of course, Dr. G goes to check on his daughter's face and noticing some color to it that shouldn't be. And of course, he accuses her of putting makeup on. And that's when we know something's a little bit off.
yeah.
So,
He says her cheeks are rosy. He's like,
Rosie.
what the fuck? He's what's going on with your cheeks? Yeah,
uh, and this is another tragic sequence, because once Dr. G and Louisa go outside because he needs to step away from his own daughter, that's when it's revealed that Dr. G thinks that the experiment didn't, or the procedure did not take. And of course,
yeah,
as he's explaining everything, we're seeing the changes in Christian's as it goes down, and he's explaining everything that's happening to her, and the fact that it's not taking, and it's slowly decaying, and it's slowly going.
Well, that's all done with like a clip show of photos.
Yeah,
It's a pretty impressive like sequence.
it
But
is.
that before that sequence, so I do like that scene where he's talking to Louise outside, and what he tells her, he tries to not talk about it, and she's like, I know you, I know when you're holding something back, and so he tells her, he's like, I failed. It's as simple as that. He knows that he failed, and it's a very strong scene, and then it goes into that sequence with the pictures, which is also a very like creative way of showing something that they could have done or they could have done with video, but they show it with pictures, and I think it's more effective seeing it that way than a very like trite and over a long like, montage sequence of seeing her in real life happening.
Oh, yeah, interesting that you mentioned that. I agree with you on that one. I think it's very effective, and I don't see that type of thing done nearly as much as what you were just discussing when there's a time lapse in other films and stories. This one using the pictures I thought was much more effective, and of course we're seeing that as he's explaining it.
Right.
So it's much more effective, you know.
Yeah, I think he's like writing in a journal or something like that. It's like his journal writings that's
Yep.
over like the pictures, and her face starts to the graph comes apart. He says things like the graph didn't take, and it starts to come off, and he has to eventually remove the new face.
So tragic. So tragic.
Yeah.
And of course, the next thing we see, and I like this scene too, is or I can't remember if it's the next scene, but it's the next scene is irrelevant to me. We see Christian's in her room and she's not looking up, so we don't see her face.
Right.
But then Louisa walks in to return the mask back to her.
Right. And
And
very
that
simple scene too. I
very
don't think there's no
so
dialogue. That's all it is. Actually, I like there's a lot of sequences with no dialogue like that. I think are the best sequences. Not necessarily the best. The picture ones are a good sequence, but like the car driving sequence, like following Christina through just following her through the house during different sequences with no dialogue, and then the mask bringing it back, like putting it on the floor. It's that, you know.
Yeah, she doesn't take it. She just Louisa just puts it on the floor next to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's visually a very tragic thing. Um, and then we have to head into the more noir and procedural part of the story, which is going
Right.
back to the cops. Uh,
There's
because
there's a character we never mentioned. It's like not necessarily that striking of a character, but Christine did
boyfriend.
have a boyfriend named Jacques, who's a doctor. He's actually works with her dad too.
Something we don't even get until their whole little sting operation, because we never get the sense that he's a doctor until that sequence, and he's a doctor working at the clinic with her father, and
Yeah, yeah,
the pieces start coming in. Oh, that's how they met. That's how they fell in love with each other. She was a yeah, it's a doctor thing, and okay, it makes much more sense. But we don't get it like
yeah.
most of this film. We don't get like any like what do you call it, heads up or any clues that any of this is actually in play until it actually becomes in play.
Yeah, it is like even like seeing him in the clinic more near the later part of the film, and suddenly we get to see different types of scenes that you traditionally would have been earlier in the film. You know, if there was a scene earlier in the film with him in the clinic, it could have put all that together
Yeah,
earlier. But it does seem like they either hold stuff back on purpose to make it more interesting when you do see it, because the character Jock is established earlier, but very briefly. But there's a in the cops suddenly they start to understand they start to suspect something's going on with all this, and so what Christine is twice during the course of the film calls Jock, and the second time she talks to him, and then he's like, at that point he's like, okay, she's still alive, and the cops kind of put together things pretty quick, but they're also very slow on other items that they do.
well, it was because there's multiple different little stories going on, like the Paulette character who only really becomes in play in the last third of the movie,
Yeah,
but she's showing up earlier as well because there's something with she has a case with the cops or something like that.
she's been shoplifting,
The
and
shoplifting. Okay,
yeah
I missed that
yeah
part.
yeah she was shoplifting. They arrested her, but they're like going to let her go. They're like didn't give a shit about it. But then this is kind of messed up what the cops do here, really. But they think they want to use her as bait
Hmm.
to get to see if the doctor will try to kidnap her. Yeah, that's I guess that's what they're kind of trying to do, and they send her to the clinic to see what will happen. And guess what happens?
Well, yeah, well, that's the funny part of this. This all starts off with, Jacques going to the cops and
Yeah,
telling them that he thinks that Christiance is alive because she called him and talked. And then
yeah,
of course that just brings up with Paulette and the fact that, she looks just like the missing girls. And then of course, it brings up Edna's best friend, who I can't remember her name to save my life, who also sets in a police report that Edna's missing, and all the only clues that she has is that Edna was meeting a woman who wore these big pearls around her neck,
yeah,
like a choker. And
right,
of course, that's the thing that leads Jacques to say,
yeah,
"Oh wait, that sounds familiar to me."
yeah,
Yeah, you know,
right. You know, it's hilarious though when she tells the cop that the first time about the choker. He's like, "Oh, that's not, that doesn't mean anything. It's not very helpful at all." He says something like that hilariously, and she's like, "Okay, well, fuck you then," you know?
pretty much.
Yeah,
But that's like a major detail to figuring out who
yeah.
the hell this is. Uh,
But it's clever the way he dismisses it, though, like dialogue wise. It's just it's just funny that he does that, and then he brings it back up. He's like, it probably don't mean anything, but there's a girl with a choker, and he's like, "Hey, I know, I've seen a damn choker, a damn pearl necklace choker, you know?"
yeah, like everyone's wearing that around in France at that time. I don't know, maybe they are.
Yeah,
But these little clues make the cops and Jacques want to send Paulette in on a sting operation to figure out what's going on.
yeah,
When right off the bat, you should think, well, they have several missing women, and we're sending someone in there without getting any of all the details just on a whim.
yeah.
This is
They,
probably the weakest part of the movie, and because they do this little sting operation, and they don't even seem to be that concerned
yeah,
because there's no one following her when she
right.
goes in this hospital. You know, uh,
Well, the one doctor's, I guess, is in there. Like Jacques is in there, but yeah, they're hanging out outside. But she doesn't actually get it in the hospital. Everything goes okay. It's like when she leaves, and suddenly the cops are like, "Oh, I guess everything's okay." And the cops actually they dismiss everything. He even has a talk with Jacques. He's like, "Okay, I guess we were wrong." And the girl goes and walks down the road, and suddenly Louise comes up and offers her a ride, and from there, she's she is like on the operating table.
yeah, I mean, she's
The cops like don't even know about it.
no, it is a funny scene because immediately, since we know as the audience that it does not take Dr. G very long, he gets a victim, he goes and he cuts their face off and he puts on his daughter, and it's pretty much all in the same day. He's not waiting. Uh,
Right, right.
so
Yeah.
next time we see Paulette after she's been picked up from off the streets for Louise is literally on the operating table with Dr. G, which is
Yeah.
just hilarious to me. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was wasting no time.
Yeah. And and if the cops completely blew it, you know,
Yeah,
like
they completely blow it.
yeah, I think there's some dialogue though about them. They start to realize that they try to get him out of the house. He actually leaves the house, and that's actually the cops get him to leave the house to come back over there and talk to him again, and then they decide everything's okay, and they're all going to go home and do whatever cops do when they get home, I guess. But
Yeah,
they completely dismiss it after that, and the girl would have been Paulette would have been completely screwed had the final thing not happen in the film. So
so yeah, so the thing about this is and getting into this final whole sequences, which is another tragic bit of the movie, is the fact that Christiance has been watching everything that's been happening to Paulette literally right across from her. Now we don't I like the way they shot this because we don't see her over there until after her father is called away by the cops. So the father is called away by the cops, and then we see that she's been over there watching her father do all this. And that goes into her psyche because she's actually watching what's happening instead of being on the operating table unconscious. And so she can't, in my opinion, she can't come to grips with what her father literally is about to do to this other innocent woman. And so when Paulette wakes up, she's automatically like, what the hell's going on and everything like that. And of course, she's afraid of Christiance when she comes up next to her, right next to her the
She looks,
table.
yeah, she got that mask on. She looks
Got the
pretty
mask
freaking
on.
crazy, and she has a
Yeah,
knife, and
yeah, and instead of Christiane stabbing her, she sets her free. Um, because at this point, I guess she is now done with what her father has been doing in the name of helping her. She's after the failed attempt with Edna's face. I don't think she really can grapple with doing that again and killing more people or allowing her father to kill more people.
yeah.
And
I don't think it wasn't ever going to work is the problem. And it was like, and she knew it wasn't going to work. And plus, it's like, is it worth just so she can have a face again? Is it worth killing? Like, how many people is it worth killing just for
yeah,
her to be able to have a face? I mean, she's still alive. I mean, her face sucks, but she's still alive though, and it's not worth it, unless somebody's like gonna volunteer to do it, but it's
so the end sequence is a very interesting one in that, in my opinion, when she cuts Paulette free, she is essentially stopping the experiments that her father is doing on her. And then she goes into the kennel and she sets all the dogs free. As
well,
though she does,
you did leave out something.
which
The Louise character comes in there, and
okay, you can, yeah, Louise characters does come in after she's let
after she lets the dogs out. Okay,
I know,
all right,
I know, no, she lets Paulette free, and
yeah,
then actually she's in the process of letting Paula free when Luis walks in and wants to know what the heck she's doing. And instead of what do you call it? Instead of Luis being able to calm her down, Christiane stabs her in the throat. A very fitting
yeah,
place because that's where the choker is, and that's where her own other scar that she's been hiding is. Stab her right in the throat, and then we
right, yeah.
watch. Yeah, I mean it's very effective. It's very
It's a
effective.
cool, yeah, it's a cool, and it's pretty gruesome scene, and someone who, movie wise, deserves to die for what she's been doing in the film. She needed to be taken out, and she's a villain, and she needed a villainous death, and she gets it. Yeah,
Well,
and it's hard, and stabbing somebody in the throat's pretty hardcore too, and there's nothing that can stop her from dying at that point. So
yeah, yeah. But that means that and this is where she goes to the kennels after this. She goes to the kennels and lets all the dogs free. Now, the dogs don't go after her. We've already seen earlier in the film that the dogs don't mind her. They actually like her. They love her. But the
yeah,
dogs are set free. Dr. G's other experiments are set free. And what is the
yeah,
first thing they do when they get freedom? They go after the freaking doctor. And
yeah.
it's a gruesome mauling scene that's both effective and striking and gruesome when we see the aftermath of what happens. But for me, it's a necessary ending for Dr. G because his own experiment has come back to kill him. And it was better the
Yeah.
dogs than
Yeah.
his own daughter.
Yeah, I like that end for him. It was very gruesome. The first dog that gets him, and the dog that I think it kind of encourages the other dogs is the dog you see during the film who is brought in there, a German Shepherd, and that dog is he hasn't been in there as long as the other ones, and he's more of a free dog. But then he sees that dog is the one that attacks him first, and the other dogs are like, oh shit, let's go attack this guy. He's been doing experiments on us, but that's a very like poetic way of both him and the other lady, the Louise. Their deaths are very poetic. The way that they die in that in the manners that they do.
Yeah. Well, I also think that watching Christiane's after freeing the dog, she goes to free the birds out of the bird cage, which are all these white, I guess they're doves.
Yeah, I think they're
White,
doves.
yeah, I think they're doves. White doves, and of course one of them lands on her. And it's very I love the way this movie ends. And of course, she's walking out of the same door the dogs fled, and she walks by her father's dead mauled body, which we see as the audience, and she
It's a
walks
pretty
back.
gruesome makeup too
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
pretty gruesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Even
That,
for a 1960s film, is very
yeah,
effective.
right.
And then, of course, she walks past him into the woods, into the darkness, and she's free from that previous life, that previous place that she called home. Everything. We don't know what happens to her. We just know that there's a white dove on her that's with her, walking, and she's walking away as though she has no care in the world. I love the way this movie ends in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, that is such a great scene, and it definitely leaves you there with that. It seems like clearly there's other scenes, there's other things left open, but we don't really need to see them. Because we get enough of the plot, and things are left ambiguous about what happens after that, and I think it's a lot more effective.
hmm Yeah. No, I this is for the longest time. I always kind of wished that, and you brought it up earlier with Psycho. I always wished that Psycho had ended on an ambiguous note like this film did. Uh, and
Yeah,
I think more people would enjoy Psycho more and have less problems with the ending of Hitchcock's Psycho, where the doctor explains or tries to explain everything. Uh, no one,
yeah.
for some
I
reason,
mean,
no one ever really likes that ending of Psycho, and I can see why. When you watch films like this one, you realize that because they were about the same time period, that there could have been a much more ambiguous and much more effective ending instead of just explaining everything away at the very end. And this film, for me, has
yeah,
always left me thinking about it, because of its ambiguous ending, thinking about other things as I sometimes do with some of these movies. But Psycho kind of just spreads it, it just kind of tells you everything at the very end, and it's kind of okay.
yeah. It is a big exposition dump. I think it does lead to you. I think it does explain though in a way that people may not have understood about him and his mom, and him thinking that he was his mom in Psycho. But I don't know. It is off-putting, but I think it may have been needed for American audiences, especially at the time. And I hadn't heard a lot of people complain about that as much, but I mean, I do. It is definitely an exposition dump, and this ending is quite lovely, though. It's like it's such a it makes the movie, and sometimes just having an ending where the photography in that shot in that sequence is freaking great. It's even like the lighting and the way that it's lit with the white dove and
Yeah,
the black the darkness, of the night. This director, I'm trying to pronounce his name.
George Franju.
There you go. Good. I appreciate
George
you doing
George Franju.
that. It's Franju. He's a documentary filmmaker, and you can kind of see that in some of what he does in this film, which is actually makes it unique compared to other films, because some of the things that happen do feel like something that would be in a documentary, even though it's being shot like a film, but it's not. Like just following the girl, that's like a kind of a documentary idea of following a person through scenes, which gives you like a more of a you're there in the room, and just that sort of like walking away and following her.
Mm. You know what? Interesting. I never looked up any other movies the director ever did. This is
Yeah.
literally the only movie I've ever seen.
But
I can't believe I've never looked up
yeah,
any of the other movies he's ever done.
yeah,
So,
they're all French movies, but there's a lot of documentaries, even on this Umbrella Entertainment one. There is a documentary on here of that he did right before this, and
oh, really?
so it's on here. It's like I don't remember the name of it now. I was hoping it would say it on the back of it, but but it's a Blood of the Beast, a 1949 documentary is on here on the disc. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
he did a lot of that sort of documentary filmmaker. This one was probably his most famous film, pretty most well-known film. But
Yeah, probably. Well, in my circles from film class, because that's where I first heard of this movie is in film class.
yeah,
Uh, I never heard of any of his other movies. It's interesting because now I'm gonna go search for some of his other films because it'd be interesting to see if they have the same type of look as this. Because you're right, I didn't know he did documentary filmmaking, but that's you can see that a lot. I mean, you can see that would explain why the surgical scene is so precise in the way it's filmed. I mean, you definitely
yeah,
see it there. So that's very interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, okay. So, now that we've gone through the whole film and how gruesome it is, What other aspects of this film do you think we need to talk about, bring up, and discuss?
Well, I think we've covered most of it pretty good. I think it is very jarring, that surgical scene. It's upsetting, just not even what you're seeing, it's just the thought behind it. It's almost like what they do in Hostel, but it's even more so in Hostel, those guys are kind of jerks a little bit, but this girl, innocent girl, they just take her. It's like The Vanishing too. In The Vanishing, that something similar like this happens to a girl. That's but it's disturbing, the facial
Yeah,
scene and what they
yeah,
do. It's very it was very influential. It 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 influenced Face Off with John Travolta and
yep.
Nicolas Cage.
And I
And
was really trying to remember the freaking recent movie. Oh God dang it. The movie that has Antonio Banderas in it, and I can't think of the damn movie to save my life.
you
Frick.
do face stuff in that with it.
No, there's a one where he's a doctor and and I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. But he more or less takes, like, I think his daughter is like killed or something, maimed by another person, and he
Yeah.
ends up taking kidnapping this person and doing a sex change on them, an unwanted
Oh
sex
wow.
change on them, to make him feel what it was like for him to have killed his daughter or something. I can't remember the damn movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
think
hadn't even
it's
heard of that, but yeah, it sounds crazy.
and, uh, and I think it's, yes, The Skin I Live In. Jesus, The
Is that
Skin I Live In.
what year was that made in?
2011 by Pedro Almodovar.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't seen I haven't seen the film. I have the film because I love Pedro Almodovar's films, but
Yeah.
he's like done so many movies I'm trying to freaking catch up on. Another great foreign
Yeah.
director.
But I think too, like, yeah, that's another thing that when you're watching the scene is that you think, is there anybody who could help her? Is anybody who could help, like, stop this from happening? And then there's no stopping it, it's going to happen. And I don't know, it's effective though. I mean, it like influenced a lot of other stuff. It not only influenced movies that were similar to this, it just the idea behind that and showing more stuff like that was definitely something that started to happen more in the 60s and 70s, and got in the 70s, you're seeing a lot more gore and gross things in films that you weren't able to see before.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, well, Dave, I want to thank you for joining us on this conversation about Eyes Without a Face. For everyone who's listening to the show, what we love to do is we like to take the movie and we like to rate it between 1 and 5 stars, 1 being poor, 5 stars being amazing. Where on the spectrum, Dave, do you place this film?
Well, this film, being 1960 French film, very influential, very classic, very disturbing. I'm going to have to give it a 4-star rating because it is very well done. It's very artistic. It's very poetic. It's not necessarily that enjoyable. When I say it's disturbing to watch, but I think there's some powerful stuff in this film, but it is ultimately very disturbing. I do like the ending a lot, that
Yeah,
especially like when, and that's sort of, I guess, any type of film, horror film, even like say I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left. The characters have to go through some shit in order for it to mean something when the villains get killed.
yeah. That's a good point that you bring up with "I've Spit on Your Grave." Yeah, yeah. I would say the Last House on the Left, but I believe the parents have to deal with it more so than the main characters, and she gets killed.
Yeah. Well, in the Last House on the Left, like in
The remake, no, the
the
remake she's
remake,
alive.
yeah, yes, that's based on Ingrid
Virgin
Bergmark's film, the Virgin Spring, with Max von Sydow in it, yeah, which is really good.
See, I haven't seen that one. I still
It's
need to
really
see that one
good.
too.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Yeah, Max von Sydow is like the dad in that is awesome. But yeah, she dies in that too, the way she dies in the Wes Craven version. Actually, I like the remake pretty good of that too, though.
So did I. I thought the remake was very effective. I like both
Yeah,
versions.
yeah,
I can appreciate the original Wes Craven version more. That really did not hit me well when I originally saw that as a kid. I was like, "What the fuck am I watching?"
yeah,
I got
yeah,
older and I can appreciate it now. I can appreciate it now. But
yeah, yeah.
I hope that people out there will appreciate this film. I give this a 4.5 star. I've always spoken highly of this film whenever I saw it. I put it on our list because it's something I don't hear anyone talk about. And I think that's a tragedy. I think that there are a lot of great foreign films out there, and foreign language films, not just foreign films. So foreign films can be anything from the Australia to fucking Canada to any of the to the UK, but foreign language films is always something a little bit different because more people are not apt to read subtitles sometimes, and so they miss out on some of these great films out there. And I think this is one of them. I think this is more fondly talked about in filmmaker circles than it is in general audiences, but I do hope that general audiences do take a chance with this film. It is a really great movie, and it has stood the test of time. It looks great. It looks great.
Yeah.
With that, I want to thank you for joining us on our program, Conversations in Horror. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you will seek out plenty of our previous episodes, as we have done a lot of great episodes and a lot of great films. Make sure to check out all of our other films, our foreign language films that we are releasing this month. Also, make sure to check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which is every first and third Friday at 8 a.m. And then check out our sister podcast, Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. That podcast is our Patreon exclusive podcast, so you do have to be a subscriber or follower to listen to that podcast. But if you do, I guarantee you will enjoy me talking about that. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.